Today's video, we're going to talk about Shopify Content API versus paid feed plugins like Feedonomics and Simprosys to get your product data into Google Merchant Center or other places if you're running ads elsewhere, so that you could advertise via the feed itself that will come from your website that lists all your products. So you can run Google Shopping ads, Bing Shopping ads, actually run an actual feed ad inside Facebook and so forth, okay? Now, the main thing that people use feed plugins up for is running Google Shopping ads. And I'm gonna talk mostly about that on this video, but the key thing here is you need to actually pay for a plugin nowadays if you wanna not lose money, okay? Why? Because the Content Feed API or Shopify Content API is not reliable, okay? It will work when it damn well wants to work. And as a result of that, you're gonna lose money when it malfunctions, okay? So I'm telling you here first. I'm gonna tell you in the case study that I've got for you, where I tell you how much this messes up and how much it's gonna cost you when it does mess up. So you don't actually have to go through this for yourself. Now, if you're just starting out in business, maybe you wanna not spend the money, that's fine. Just know the risks going in. Your goal eventually should be to use a paid plugin to have everything as solid as freaking possible. That is, at the very, very least, if you have regular changes to your website. Now, if you never make a change to any of your products, you're good for the most part. But if you're making changes a lot of changes to the prices, a lot of changes to the content on the actual product pages of your website, you need to have a paid plugin anymore. And I'm going to explain why that is. So with that said, the reasons why you're going to want to use a paid plugin versus the Shopify Content API, which is the free resource that Shopify gives you to get your product data from your Shopify site to Google Ads or wherever you're trying to send it, through Google Merchant Center or wherever you're sending it. And here's the big one: faster updates, okay? The product data, when it changes on your website, is going to get updated in the places that you advertise much, much sooner itself. Now, when you're talking about the Shopify Content API and you're talking about Google, it's going to get the data there much, much sooner in general, okay? So depending on how much the changes are, it can actually limit your products in Google Shopping when you don't actually have the updates there. So if you change your price, you change it from $60 to $80, okay? If that doesn't get reflected in Google Merchant Center, what Google Merchant Center will do is realize that your product is priced differently on your website than it is on your product feed. And then your product feed will be now limited, and your campaigns therefore will be limited for that product, okay? Now, if you have, there's a setting in Google Merchant Center that will try to override this when this happens. I wouldn't mess with that. You can look into this if you're using the Shopify Content API to run your product feed for your company. If you don't use this feature, or just if you want to say in general, ultimately, Shopify is supposed to update Google Merchant Center within 24 hours of any price changes. Problem is, one, Google can notice even within that 24 hours that the price has changed a limited item, so it won't show anymore or show way less. But also, here's the key thing: it can often take days for it to update. It says it's supposed to update in 24 hours. The reality is it can take 48 hours, 72 hours sometimes. Why? I really don't know necessarily, but I've definitely noticed this. But even if it takes 24 hours, you can take a hit on your results. Because keep in mind, okay, with Google and Learning Mode, and how I've talked about it on other videos before, if your product is limited, that isn't just going to affect you while the product is limited. It's going to affect you after it's unlimited. Once Google sees it's limited, you're going to potentially go back into learning mode, and then it's going to take a few days to climb out of learning mode. Could be a week before your results are back to where they should be for that item. So, and that's the bigger, fly in the ointment here, so to say. You can actually just not make changes to your website and be cool and good, but if not, you got to use a paid plugin. For that matter, not everything that you change on your product page is going to cause a limited status on Google Merchant Center and then slow down your campaigns. Pricing changes, certainly is the main one, but it could actually, there's other ways that you could, other things that you could change that'll also potentially limit it. I won't go over what all those technicalities are in this video. The other reason why to use a paid plugin versus the Shopify Content API for your product feed is it keeps the Google Merchant Center account that you have cleaner. Do you want to actually only send the products that you want to market into Google Merchant Center? Well, a paid solution, paid plugin, will make sure that only the products that you want to get sent, whereas the Shopify Content API is just going to send everything by default. I mean, generally speaking, okay, there are ways to technically filter it, but for the most part, that's what's going to go on. In a paid plugin, the main reason why people use a paid plugin is to, if they're going to use one, to be honest, the main reason why they're buying it, in their mind why they're using it, is to filter products that should go onto Google Merchant Center and which ones should not, because they don't want to advertise everything, so to say. Even though you could obviously filter on Google Merchant Center itself which items should Google pay attention to and which ones they shouldn't for the free listings as well as your paid ads that use it. Also, another reason why to use a paid plugin is there's different feeds for different countries that you can have, okay? So if you sell internationally, you want different product feeds for each country that has the products listed that you could actually sell in that country, of course, number one. Even bigger than that is the pricing needs to be in different currencies itself, and so you want to have different product feeds for each, and the paid plugins can help you manage all this. Number 4 reason why you would use a paid plugin is it prevents filtering at a campaign level, because there's 3 ways overall to filter the products that are on your website, ultimately which ones get promoted with your shopping and or PMAX campaign if you run a PMAX campaign to run your shopping placements. And that is, number 1, you can filter it at the feed level using your feed plugin like I was talking about earlier. You can also filter it at the Google Merchant Center account level by just, deactivating a product there. You could also filter it at a campaign level itself, either by directly excluding it at the campaign level via the product listing menu via your campaign, or you could also add a label on Google Merchant Center and then make sure the campaign's set up to look for a certain product with a certain label on it and then automatically filter by that label, which is one that we use actually quite often here. Our default way that we manage clients' accounts is filtering at the campaign level using these labels more than anything else. With that said, if you use a paid feed plugin, you don't have to add these labels or do any of this for items that you're never going to want to promote in Google Shopping, and allows you a nice, clean user interface to do that versus having to add the label and then make sure the label's excluded on your Google ad campaign. So that's the other reason why you may want to use a paid plugin or paid solution for your product feeds. Okay? Now, with that said, some other things I wanted to mention. So this isn't necessarily a review video for Feedonomics or Simprosys, but these are the big ones that most people I see are using. Feedonomics itself, I will typically not use that because first of all, it's expensive. Second of all, I don't want Feedonomics to have reins around my business. Ultimately, I can't easily, if they decide to raise the prices on me, they start being unreliable. It's hard to get my stuff out of there quickly, I would say also. But the main thing with Feedonomics is, unless you're going to advertise in a bunch of different places with your product feed, you don't need it. Simprosys will do that just fine for you. Simprosys, by default, if you don't know already, will allow you to advertise your product feed on Google, Microsoft/Bing, Facebook, and then also Pinterest. The big 4, if you will. So if you're like most small businesses that are just starting out, or let's say even if you do less than $1 million a year in revenue at the very least, you probably are going to be satisfied with just these, because mentioned many times on previous videos, you want to not spread yourself too thin. And in fact, the less money you have starting out, the less you should be doing, down to the level of targeting just one keyword or a certain website, and that's it. Because you're going to spread out all the data and the learning that you're going to get so much that you're not going to be able to learn anything. It's like putting a drop of water into the ocean here. Whereas if you would have just test it out one keyword. You can find out right away if that keyword works or not, and then move on to another one if it doesn't work, or start making money right away. So, and that goes to ad networks. You shouldn't really be advertising on 2 ad networks until you've made one profitable, because of what I just said, but also because you're going to likely run out of money before you get both of them working, because it takes data and time to get to a level of bare minimum profitability with it. So you're not doing $1 million a year in revenue, at least. There's no business going outside of these. In fact, I would even argue until you're doing 5-10 million US revenue a year, you shouldn't be going out of these. Okay? There's a point in time where then I'm going to go ahead and expand. And there's a lot of places now you can advertise your products as an e-commerce company, of which, by the way, very few people do/should do. There's a lot of companies trying to get in on the game of data and letting you access their customer data to find customers. So like Amazon's got their own display network where you can advertise to Amazon customers on the display network. People have bought a certain item, you can advertise to them when they're on weather.com. And because you know what they bought on Amazon, you can do this. So that's one thing. You could also do this with people, with Home Depot's customers, Lowe's customers. I've got separate videos, by the way, about this that you should look up and search on my channel homepage in the search bar, search for Home Depot, Lowe's, all this. And you can understand how to do this as an e-commerce company and make a bunch more money, frankly. But with that said, it starts with the product feed, and you got to get your product feed to these other places in order to advertise that way. Not to mention, also advertise on HomeDepot.com. So if you sell fancy microwave, you'd be silly not to advertise on HomeDepot.com, just like you could advertise on Amazon. You could advertise on Lowe's.com and so forth. And it just gets you in front of another customer, not only on those websites, but then also, again, after the person leaves Home Depot, you know that they were looking at microwaves. You can advertise to them when they leave the site, your microwave, and get a lot more sales. Anyway, with that said, Feedonomics is one of the biggest one in their category, but they understood that, you know, people don't want to actually go and take their product feed to these websites individually. They want one product feed. They add all the filters and whatnot they need to decide what gets promoted, what doesn't, and they want to have a direct connection to all these places, which you could advertise 20 different places, and so that you're only managing all the products once for one centralized source. And that's what Feedonomics does well. You can then use it to advertise on Home Depot, Walmart.com, CVS.com, and it goes on. And I've got separate videos about each one of these if you want to do this, by the way, which you should certainly look at it once you're starting to get plateaued on these other platforms. But the key thing here being that unless you're going outside of these different places, there's no business getting a several $100 a month Feedonomics account. Okay? In my opinion, there's just not. Okay? To keep it simple. Now, you may say, oh, Corey, Feedonomics has this and it's cleaner and it looks like this. Yeah, I understand it's not identical in all other ways. Problem is, though, how do you justify that extra money? I'd rather take that extra $100 and put it down on some more ads that have this nice, clean interface and great support. Even though Simprosys has support as well, you know, it's crappy, but instead of spending it on a feed plugin, everything's all relative when it comes to marketing. Your job as a business owner is to figure out how to scale your sales to the next level at all times, out of all the 100+ different ways you can do it. You're always trying to, with an e-commerce company, if you're smart, trying to figure out, okay, my sales are $1 million a year. I know if I can get $5 in sales revenue for every dollar I spend on ads, I'm profitable and I can make that work. So we're spending $200,000 a year advertising now. We're making $1 million. Let's raise our ad spend from 200 to 220, which is a 10% increase. And let's try to get the sales overall to go up another 10% so that we can do that again and again and again and again. And every single time when you do this, you got to find out of the 500 different ways to do this, what is the most impactful thing that you can do, which most people are just stupid and idiotic about this. They just go with the next shiny thing. Oh, we're doing what we're doing. Oh, this looks even better. Let's try this. No, let's do what we're doing. What's anything we're doing that we want to test? It's in addition to what we're doing, first of all. And then of that thing we're testing, just because it's some sales guy said it attractive way, we don't just jump on that. We study, we become students of marketing, and we figure out what is the most likely thing that's going to get us the best return right now. So that next 10% we spend, it takes the least amount of time to raise our sales. Another 10%, you can do this again faster. The faster you recycle your money, the quicker you're going to scale the company, the quicker you can eventually sell or what have you. A feed plugin only needs to do one job, which is to get the damn product feed data into the ad platforms. So in my opinion, unless you have to advertise in these other places, you don't need to use anything besides Simprosys. And for that matter, if you're starting out, your day one, you don't even need Simprosys, okay? Yes, you could eventually have your products limited, but that's not your main concern right away. Your main concern right away is, what am I going to promote that's even going to work? So you have to prioritize things as an e-commerce business owner at all times. I mean, I know this isn't about the topic at hand here, but ultimately, and I wanted to just rant on this for a little bit, ultimately, like even with Shopify Plus, okay? I've made videos about this, how great it is. It's great, yes. But for a new business that isn't doing at least $1 million a year in sales revenue, it doesn't make financial sense to do it. Use that $2,000 a month to test another ad platform or make your website a little convert a little bit better before you do that. Yes, it's nice to have at a $5 million a year run rate. You want to have that in there. It'll add enough value to with the remarketing audiences it gives you that you wouldn't necessarily have otherwise with standard cookie-based remarketing, but it's not going to be the best thing for you until you're at a certain level of scale, ultimately. Because obviously the cost of doing it is the same whether you're doing $5 million a year or 500,000, and those audiences will have more value to you the bigger of a company you are. So you have to put things into perspective always. And the average person that struggles, whatever feels good to them, don't do that if you want to scale quickly. Now, with all that said, that goes over Simprosys versus Feedonomics versus Shopify Content API. I went through all that. I said, if you watch to the end of the video, I will have a case study for you here, your business, by not having a paid feed plugin, at least at a certain point in time where it's harder to get the next bit of revenue for your business, and you want to kind of search for other ways to optimize it in your business. And that is switching to a paid feed plugin so that your feed's consistent. So the ads you're running are going to run more consistently moving forward. Before I do that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do it now. There's no reason not to subscribe to this channel. We've got the best information on YouTube about how to make money with ads you're going to find anywhere else, because I spend 80 hours a week to bring you this data. 40 of it just running ad tests, and then another 40 to run this channel. Nobody else is doing this. They're either talking about ads and not running any ads themselves, or they're running ads, they don't have time to run a channel. So I'm the only one crazy enough to do this as far as I know, and therefore the information's valid. I've got a great blog on my site as well at guaranteedppc.com/blog, where you can find my step-by-step strategies to be able to get yourself guaranteed results on your ads. I've got them all mapped out there for you. If you like the channel, you're going to like that blog even more. I promise you, you should check that out as well. If you have any questions about anything I'm covering here, by the way, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours. I also got a great Discord group that I started, and you can find the link of that in the video description. I'm in there. I'm answering questions there as well. Furthermore, even in addition to that, if you want to set up a call with me, just reach out to me through my site at guaranteedppc.com. We can talk over your problems that you're having, or if you want to set up a coaching or consulting call, we can do that. I work with agency owners and regular companies. Beyond that, the main business I have and why I could bring you this data is I work with clients and I get them results. Ultimately, what we do though, and what we're different than everybody else in that, like any other PPC or ad agency, is what we're doing is we're guaranteeing our clients results before they get paid. So if you do not get a certain minimum lift in your profitability from your ads or a certain level of profitability, we do not charge a management fee. No other agency, as far as I still know, does anything like this because they're not good enough to do it. And then what I learned, what works, I share on this channel. But if you are interested in this, I can get you an 8-quarter projection of your results, what we could guarantee for you, what we could not. If you're interested in that, reach out to me through my site and I'd be happy to have a discussion with you to get you that kind of data. Similar to that, I've also got ad templates available. If you are in a market that we've already been in, you are absolutely crazy not to get our template that works for your market, because we've already spent in many cases, millions of dollars in ad spend to figure out the perfect way to run an ad in your market in another city or different country that you're in. Why would you not buy the template from us and just start there? Especially since I can tell you the results you're going to get with it up front. You can just compare it to the results you're getting now. A lot of people, they reach out to me and they say they want the template, but they're thinking it's going to be $50. And it's insane because it's a multi-million-dollar a year ad campaign that we're able to run, and it profits hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Why would it be $50? So, it's not like buying a web template for $50, but it's the value's there. And for that matter, we charge more because we don't want everybody using the damn template. If I sold it for $50, then it would be useless because there's 100 people using it. But it's certainly a hell of a lot cheaper than just figuring out everything we had to figure out on your own. We charge 4 figures for this. It's not crazy expensive, but it works. It's copy paste. You take the campaigns, the landing pages, the ads, you copy paste them in your ad account, and then boom, you get the results. And really, it's that simple. There's nothing to figure out. If you're interested in that, let me know. I've got templates in 100+ different niche markets. So the chances are quite high I've already got the results in your market. Or if you're looking to start a business, starting from a template is the easiest, smartest thing you could do, honestly. What the case study now, all right? Now, this is a wakeboarding supplies company. With that, this guy that I work with, he changes the prices several times a year, 3-4 times a year. So what I wanted to do, and the reason why I made this video was I was starting to get pissed off about products getting limited, about the Shopify Content API for a while now. This guy changes prices so much that it was I wanted to talk about because it was starting to really affect us. And it was a great company to talk about here. For that matter, because I look back about 24 months in terms of what's the frequency of our products being limited when he changes his prices on his site. Because what this guy also has a tendency to do is to not tell me when the prices are changing. He'll just go ahead and change it. If it's running out of stock, he'll just raise the price. And then if it's not running out of stock, he'll lower the price again, which, by the way, I don't really recommend that. It can work out for you sometimes, but you're going to cause volatility with your ads doing that. I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but that was the deal there. And what I can tell you is 30% of the time, roughly, we would have limited products when he goes up or down. Okay, because he's using the Shopify Content API versus Simprosys. Okay, and then of that, okay, how much do you think that this affected our profitability of our ads? Which is the real important thing here. Well, what I did was every single time I took a week out of that time frame, the day that it was changed, basically 7 days after, and I compared it to the week before, and I did this for all the way back 24 months. So every single time, 7 different times that they changed the prices, taking those 7 days directly after each one of those price changes, and then comparing it to the 7 days before that price change each time. What do you think the difference in our profitability of our shopping / PMAX campaigns, which it's technically PMAX for this guy, because I always run PMAX feed-only setups to run shopping placements because it works better than regular shopping. 32% of our profit was gone, at least during the times that it was limited. Not every time, but when the 30% of the time it was limited, that affected our profitability of our campaigns 32% overall, week over week, if you will, just because the products were limited. So they don't get outright disapproved, but they become limited, and that in itself affects your profitability. There you go. There's your case study, and that should be evidence enough that, like I said before, if you're at the level where I would say, generally speaking, if you're at least doing several million a year now, you should be switching over to a paid feed plugin because it's enough to take it seriously. If you're doing 100,000 a year now, maybe you don't do it. You save the money. It's not even so much about the money of the plugin, but as it is, you need somebody to manage the plugin. It's not just going to automatically work for you. You got to hire somebody to manage that plugin. So for that matter, maybe you don't worry about it right now, but the sooner you do it, obviously the better. It's just about of all the things you could do, it's going to affect you more and more the bigger you get. So you can just handle it now or you can handle it later. You should eventually handle it if you're going to be trying to scale an e-commerce business and not just piddle around and try to, let's just do a little bit of business. I don't care about money, which a lot of people try to do, and they end up going out of business eventually because if you're not growing, you're dying, which is a whole separate topic. But with that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. If you want to see another video, click here. It is one of my best ones.